share with us your journey before, what led you to Islam?
I mean, there was a little journey because I was always looking for something that was missing in the life, right? And I have to admit, I went all the way to the other direction. I'm a physicist, right? And as a physicist, you train your brain and your thought that you don't need God in life. You don't need this, right? And because everything is working towards, or like a law, right? And you find out, and humans are capable to find out all the laws. Right? And so that pushed more and more, like, in Europe, that happens, of course, since 200 years, that God was basically pushed out because of science and because of technology outside of the life. However, for me, something was missing, and I, like many other Muslims who converted, I also studied Buddhism and other things. I looked into that, and I got attracted to Buddhism because there was this thought about, meditation. I kind of like that. So to take yourself out of the regular world, right? And so I listened to a lot of Buddhist practices, and things were like suffering, right? And all the things that we say now is in the dunya, right? They are being taken away, right? Sorry.
So what happened, I guess, after?
So I mean, what I'm saying is I started to meditate and started to think about what are these essential things, and like Buddhists, right, they try to detach them from what we call the dunya, right? That is what the Buddhist is doing.
The dunya mean, what's dunya mean?
The dunya, the world, right? It's the world, and your nafs and everything, that's around that. So you're trying to detach yourself from that, and with that you should have a more pleasant life, because you are taking away all the things that cause trouble or cause suffering, and that is the things that that is life. Your nafs and your needs and your desires, they cause pain, and that is the Buddhist belief. Now, making a long story short, later I got a job, or got not a job but an assignment in the United Emirates. That was the first time I was ever in a Muslim country, and that was a new thing to me. So I was open to that, but I tell you quite frankly, if you would have asked me to become a Muslim that time, I'd say you're crazy, right? I would never ever do that, because I was, of course, like everybody else, I heard the biased news from the news, right, and what Muslims are, and I had not a right perception from what Muslims are. And that's not quite right. I was actually in Turkey before, and I heard the azan in the morning, and I thought it was just crazy, right? So they were backwards. That was my honest belief. Now, I was in the Emirates, and the first thing that came where I got a little bit more closer to what Islam was, I had this driver who was driving me every morning to the office and back. So the office there sent a driver, and they picked me up from the hotel and he drove me back. I was there for the first week, and I thought, since I'm in Abu Dhabi, right, I want to see Dubai, and we'll see how that looks like. And I asked the guy if he would be free on the weekend and would drive me around in Dubai. So yes, he came, we drove around, and now he was Muslim, and he asked me if he could make some stops on the road. He said he had to do some prayers. I was not aware of that concept, when the prayers were and whatnot. I said, of course, you have to do what you have to do. So he kept driving me around, so he dropped me off back at the hotel, and then he said to me, after I paid him a little tip more than I should have, or I was supposed to, and he said, I pray for you. And the way he said that, it was not just I pray for you, and he said that was deep from his heart. That really touched me. So that was the first thing. And later on, I also met my wife that I have now, right, and she started to introduce me more. So the second incident is I was having a taxi driver. Another taxi driver drove me to the big mosque in Abu Dhabi, and he introduced me to wudu, how to make wudu and everything. And I went to the prayer. That was the first time in the big mosque in I think it was a Friday prayer. I can't remember. It was the first, because it was packed there, and we did the Friday prayer. I didn't know what I was just imitating pretty much. So that was the first steps towards Islam. And then the other thing I observed there, that was at 12 o'clock when the Adhan was praying, everybody would go to the mosque. And I like that concept a lot because that was very close what I learned from the Buddhists. Right? They really practiced it. Everybody did. They dropped everything and went arm in arm together down the elevator into the mosque. I said, wow, look at that. Right? So that's amazing. Right? They really stop all the nonsense that you do in life. I mean, I shouldn't say nonsense, but all your busy work, and you go pray and distance yourself from the dunya. Right?
Yeah.
And then come back, and they come arm in arm, like friends. That was impressive to me. Right? So these are things. And then, of course, I shouldn't neglect the part that I met my wife, and she kept teaching me and taught me how to pray and taught me everything about Islam. And so I picked up, eventually I converted, right? So I took the Shahada in Abu Dhabi, and they gave me a ton of books, right? A ton of books, believe it or not, in German, right? In Abu Dhabi, you get the books. They gave you a ton of books in English and in German.
In German.
Yes, and I'm just reading one of them actually from Galen, right? The guy who was in conflict with Erdogan. And, he's actually here in the US, right?
Fethullah?
Huh? Yeah, Fethullah Gulen.
Gulen.
Yeah, Gulen. Yeah, he's here in the US, and they gave me actually 3 or 4 books from him, translated into German. So I started reading this and got more and more into this, and understood more and more about the concept of Islam. And what I really liked about was when I looked at the Buddhist practice that I learned, I realized that the Muslims actually translated, they lived it, they did it. Right? If you really practice Islam, you do what what the Buddhists are talking about. You distance yourself from the dunya. If you really do it right, you take it all away, right? And you do it. And if you practice and you go pray and think about this, and you give your, pay zakat and all these kind of things, these are all the concepts that are being taught by Buddhism too, believe it or not. So, and that's what drew me more into it, because if you go down that route, and I've talked to other people too, I know many people went through the Buddhist route into Islam. That seems to be a natural path, right? Because you have to, it's closer. Buddhism is closer to the Western thinking, so that's easier to grasp. And from there, when you understood the Buddhist thinking, you can actually then also understand Islam.
Yes.
There seems to be some way for people to get from here to there.
In the Quran,
I'm not sure if there's
success is قد أفلح المؤمنون الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون. So
not sure if it makes sense. Right?
The success when the mu'minin are really
in their prayer, they have full humility. He's talking about the first verses from Surah 23, chapter 23. Indeed, the believers are successful. Those who are in their salah, they have khushua, full submissiveness.
Full submissiveness means full concentration. And there are many hadith about that, right? So when people were in full concentration, what happened to them? And they were all in full concentration. But that is the same like meditation. If you are to that state in Buddhism, that you do this concentrated meditation, it's very, very similar. A very, very similar concept.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
So I mean that's what I'm saying. Of course, and then there are all the other virtues, because what's kind of missing in Buddhism, even though they teach you these practices, I don't know how I should say that, but the guidance is missing, right? Here you have one guidance, you have one destination, right?
Yeah.
That is Allah, right? So that gives you the meaning in life, and if you think, let me phrase it more profanely. If you think whatever you do it for Allah, then you do it. I'm looking for words now, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at Buddhism, you should do everything and take away your interests, right?
Yeah.
But here you have a little purpose in life. Right? You have a purpose in life. You are here for a reason, and whatever you do, you should do for Allah.
Yes.
Right? And take all your own interests and all your nafs away. I know that's hard, right? Who can really do that? But if you do it this way, then it gives you a certain, I'm looking for the right, happiness is not the right word. It gives you peace of mind, peace of mind, because you feel like, now you're doing the right thing. Sure, I mean, that's the right thing to do. You're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for a higher reason. Yeah? Whatever you do. And if you think about all your actions in that manner, then that gives you, great guidance overall, right? And if you keep practicing this, right, then I mean that is where you can get better, right, overall. I mean, you can do that in Buddhism, but I don't think in Buddhism, I've never seen this, that you get this guidance. Yes, they talk about suffering and how to avoid suffering in life, but this guidance is missing. This part is, from my perspective, is missing. And I'm not trying to compare the religions here, this religion is better than that one, we shouldn't be doing this, I know that. But I'm just trying to say that to describe how I came from here to there. Right? If that makes any sense.
Yes. Well, Jazakallah khair, Brother Beaufort, and hopefully we will have a follow-up in part 2 in the future, inshallah. And thank you thus far with sharing your journey, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to make it easy for you and your family, and for everyone that's searching for the truth, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.